Hi, my name is Luke Banton. Uh, Question: Did Gary Cairns and Roger Toll? You see, frightened of being caught, they look into me, um, concern them to. Well, they told me they were police checking me for appropriate approval to work in the Capital Chemist Group. Their police check merely consisted of, and I later learned that they're defrauding the police, misleading them with things like impersonated phone calls. But yeah, their police check into me consisted of them looking up a newspaper article about an attack between my father to my mother when I was 5, and so they approved me instantly. And due to their rules about privileged or confidential information not being defined, and me not being given any documentary paper to sign as an employee, I was very baffled. I have only in recent years worked out that this was what they were looking at, because they pulled the article from access from the web. All you had to do was type in "frenzied attack on wife alleged" into Google, and the article would appear. Now they removed it, but that was all they had looked at. And as I say, being the homos that they are, they assumed I was there and that I learnt to love stabbing and killing. By the example of my father stabbing my mother. So once again, submit to any courts in the ACT. This is additional to my figuring them for homosexuals. And there's also other things that they have asked me to do at certain times that, unless I have a vagina, certainly would have you call them homosexuals. Now, Roger Toll is using, and I do not know of his supplier. I do not know of his source. I know if he had military credentials, he would want to show me as part of these sequential gestures of impressing me with how much they had achieved, but no such presentation of any licensing qualifications were displayed by Mr. Toll, who I am submitting my intention to prosecute at the earliest possible moment in the state of an emergency. An emergency that not only has ripped the last 10 years out of my life, but potentially poses threat to any citizen in the ACT. Now, I can explain everything that they taught me, but their religious inspiration was the crown of thorns placed on Jesus of Nazareth, which they simulate with radio waves operating on the epistemology, which, if you don't know what epistemology is, it is knowledge theory or types of knowledge. And these radiological programs run on the epistemological foundation of religious theology. So they're designed, and these people are absolutely targeted, well ahead of them even knowing it, because they make sure that the voice is samples. And I have not read reports that are confidential to psychiatrists, but if people hearing voices who have been detained at mental health facilities have reported hearing the voices of a known person to them at a particular time, I would encourage the psychiatrists to study the dynamics of that which they report to have heard, because it's typically that they hustled or negotiated by the sound of a particular person's voice that the psychiatrist will no doubt chalked up to memory, repressed memory. This is what happens when you let science go into religion and get unempirical. And this is why Calvary Hospital is invited to suck drops of cum from my cock. This is why I will celebrate the death of Elizabeth Alexandra Mary II. I'm not against the crown. It's on the Chase's War and everything, you know. They put a nude photo of her up on one episode of that, and whatever body they photoshopped, probably had her cheering on the basis that it would have been more sexually attractive than her own. So I'm not against the crown. But that's for her. Now, Roger Tor represents that the Queen has personally given him authority to kidnap citizens and to broadcast voices running on this classical conditioning, psychoanalytic epistemology. As a result, they are unable to distinguish things like imagination or state of distress from a memory of a criminal event. Their only qualifications are is Freemasonry. So I am therefore put into the position where I am to ask, well, how could they possibly have gained access to this tech and the army not know? And the only scenario I can really think of to explain that is that while we are being attention to consider Islamic terrorism to merely concern us to, you know, armed terrorists with guns and weaponry of that sort. The truth is, as Ayaan Hirsi Ali herself has stated, is that the Islamists were, in a very true sense, humanity's first scientists. Algebra is a mathematical language devised by Islamists. Quantum algebra, there's such a thing as quantum algebra. So these types of theories, and it was the concerns of Niels Bohr and Schrödinger and various quantum physicists that should technologies built upon the theories of these men, Max Planck, be placed into the wrong hands, misused, then it would pose a tremendous threat to the safety and welfare of humanity. So, on this matter, and this is not the matter for which I will be appearing soon at the Magistrates Court, but it is a matter that I am suggesting the immediate arrest of Gary Cairns and Roger Tor, the immediate tracking of the activities and movements of Gary Cairns and Roger Tor. If shipments from the UK could involve powered off technologies, and all they have to say is UK imported, now that the UK is accepting Sharia law courts, the Islamic agenda is being endorsed to that extent, which I'm not saying I'm opposed to. I'm only saying it may have been a way for smuggling, perhaps via boat, ships, shipping of quantum Doppler radio sensitive technology. So it is actually, if you consider what scientific method is, it is not a scientific claim to say a citizen is sick or ill in any way, shape, or form on the basis that they are hearing voices. This is not a scientific claim unless the voices have been measured. As you all know from school when you were taught what the scientific method is, these signals, the voices would have to be independently measured with radiologically sensitive technology, so that they could then show you on a display. Well, here's the voices we've measured in this brain, or else their claim is non-scientific. And the excuse that, well, it's us just doing the best we can under the circumstances, while we put a heart around the murder of Jesus of Nazareth on every Calvary Hospital building. Then that blonde doctor, I turned up with long hair to talk about physically disabling pain, get floored by 4 doctors, one for every nail and one for the crown of thorns, within fucking 10 seconds. Psych notes, I think she had on her system that I am a danger to myself and to others, potentially. Well, how do you do that without violating the right to life, health, movement, or expression? Don't ever do that again, Dr. Bitch, unless you intend to fuck. I will grant you that you are fuckable. And it would calm me in so far as I have done more extreme than you. Warrants should be produced for the arrest of Gary CAIRNS and Roger Marpinell's toll as soon as possible. They are severely eroding the Commonwealth vault of $3.8 billion a year, and I have taken death threats from the owner of the company. So, for that reason alone, contacting O to report criminal activity from the owner of Capital Chemist, if a death threat and extended to my cat that I had to give to another home, hide her from my own sight, then O should may as well be 911 here. I've already forgotten the 14 whatever number. I was saying earlier today, there are police officers and there are Christian inbred filth piggers. Christian inbred biphobic filth piggers. And piggers have got to go. You sold out your morals because you want honours from a violent, warmongering dyke. Biphobic dyke who really should have kept these inbreeding stories at Buckingham on the inside that I'm sure their bloodlines know about all too well, and have never told any of us about it at all.